What is happening, everybody? So, SRT4. I have not made a video chatting about this car yet, and I feel horrible about that. I have got the biggest crush on SRT4s imaginable. It all started back around 2003, 2004. I had the opportunity to drive one at Texas Motor Speedway at a VOI event. And that was probably one of the most fun opportunities I've ever had in my life. We got to run it on an infield course, and throughout the course of the day, I think I made about 30 laps in that car, and I had so much fun in that thing. And I've always had a bit of a kink for front-wheel drive cars. I don't know why. I guess it's because there's such a departure from, the normal muscle car or pony car front engine rear drive platform. And I'm not talking about front-wheel drive cars like a typical boring, Celica. I'm talking about, the SRT4, a hot hatch type of a platform. But anyway, the SRT4 is actually a really cool car, and I wanted to give it a little bit of love. So, to give you guys a little bit of history, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, imports really started to gain a lot of traction as far as tuning and some street cred, things like that. Kids were really gravitating towards that kind of a platform, and it was kind of a big deal to take your Civic and do some work to it, whatever that may have been, throw nitrous on it, a turbo or whatever, and go whoop up on some Mustangs and Camaros running around on the street. And as that began to become popular, you could almost kind of hear the wheels start to turn again in Mopar and in Dodge. And what I mean again is this. Imagine you're Dodge. Your market is now front-wheel drive, hot hatches, and fast front-wheel drive platforms. Mopar probably took a look around and said, hey, we've been doing this shit for years. You got to remember, back in the early and mid-'80s, Dodge was producing cars like the GLH and the Shelby Daytona. And yes, those are Shelby-derived cars. I actually got a chance to go to the Shelby Museum back in the day, and sitting right there, nice and pretty, GLH and a Daytona. I gotta tell you, that was a really cool experience, but it kind of got me to appreciate those cars even more. And see, back then, when Chevrolet and Ford were still rolling with the front engine rear drive platform, Dodge, looking ahead, saw that the front drive was basically the way of the future and started to make little hot rods that would compete with things like the GTI. Well, fast forward 20 years and here we go again. So, Dodge, jumping back on their own bandwagon, put together a neat little package. They took a Neon, which was basically just a small economy car, jammed a 215 or 225 horsepower turbo four-cylinder into that thing, went out and started kicking the crap out of the imports at what they thought was their own game. Basically, they were just reading from a book that Mopar had written 20 years prior. Just took everybody about 20 years to figure out that that can actually be a lot of fun, and it's a pretty viable platform in its own way. But it gets better than that. See, I remember a time when it was not uncommon to see SRT4s rolling around on the street that could easily click off mid to low 11-second passes and still knock down, I don't know, about 30 miles per gallon on the highway, and you could do that all day long. Neat car. It's kind of fun too when you start to take a look at how that car was developed, but it's even more fun that it's a front drive car, and it was put out onto the street. It only had a couple of years of production run, if memory serves me correctly, but in that production run, it basically sat the imports on their ass, but it did pave the way for newer varieties of that type of a platform. If you think about it, there's tons of hot hatch platforms now. There's four-cylinder turbos are now basically in everything, even pony cars now again. But getting back to that SRT4, I don't know if we're ever going to see another SRT4 come from Mopar, but I will say this. I have got some of the most fond memories of that car running around back in the day, and I still get a little bit of a smile on my face every time I see one running around. They're a lot of fun. Check them out if you ever have it. If you ever get the opportunity to see one, don't cut your eyes at it. It's definitely a neat car, and I'll tell you this, don't cross one's path that's been modded. It's, again, not uncommon for those things to be bumped up either with a different compressor, 100 shot of nitrous, bigger injectors, different fuel map, and a different fuel pump. Yeah, watch y'all ass, because that little SRT4 will show its cute little tail lights to your windshield in a heartbeat, my friend. So anyway, just wanted to show a little bit of love to the SRT4. If you got one of those things, post up. That's a wrap on this one. Adios.